Well, I hate to say it, but almost everyone has had one. We're talking about a bad boss, but there are ways to deal with them. And here to talk about it is our career counselor, Michele D'Amico, and we want to welcome you to the show. So we want to start out by talking about the different types of bad bosses. I mean, we've all kind of had the yellers and screamers, but that doesn't necessarily make them a bad boss.
No. We have the narcissist, the hands-off boss, the micromanager, right? The bad communicator, the chaos boss too, right? Okay, so a lot of different kinds of bosses. Not everybody is a bad boss, as you said, but if you find yourself with a bad boss, they may fit into one or more of these categories. So the strategies I'm going to talk about are not meant to change their behavior so much as to help mitigate some of the negative effect that might have on you doing your job.
Okay, so what's the first thing that we should do if we've got one of these bad bosses?
Well, if you have a narcissist, for example, a good compliment goes a long way.
Oh,
for example, hey, I love what you did in the meeting today, Dave. That was terrific. They like to be in control, so what you want to do is communicate with them all the time. Keep them in the loop.
Okay, okay. And what about the next one?
If you have a hands-off boss, then you're going to have to find ways to get your information in other areas of the company, or you may have to work harder at getting that information with your team, but make sure you keep that boss in the loop and let them know what you're up to.
Okay, see, I always think that when they're hands-off, they don't want to be bothered, and you shouldn't bother them.
They don't want to, yes, but they want to know what's going on.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So then you have the micromanager, which is the complete opposite of the hands-off boss, and that one you want to anticipate what their requests are. So you know that they want to know every little detail. Be proactive. Give them all the details before they ask.
Okay.
Right? Then we have the incompetent or chaos boss, I call them. So, and this boss, you're going to have to make a lot of decisions on your own, which is not necessarily a bad thing because you may have to go to other managers and they may get to know who you are. You may move up in the company, so it's not necessarily bad. But once again, keep this boss in the loop.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Then we have the bad communicator. So the one who just, so you really want to make sure that you repeat everything they say. So for example, you might say, so you let me make sure I have this right. You need me to do X, Y, and Z. Is that correct? You want to document everything, verify it with emails.
That's what I was going to ask.
Take good notes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Then you have the screamer. Caveat here, nobody really deserves to have that kind of behavior at work. However, if you find yourself in that situation, you want to anticipate the triggers. If you know being 5 minutes late is going to set this person off, go the extra mile and come in 10 minutes early. So bottom line here is you don't want their bad behavior to affect your ability to do your job. Once that starts happening, then you may have to consider cutting your losses and moving on.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. One of the things that I always wonder about is, almost all bosses say, I've got an open door policy, come in whenever you, but I don't know what it is, but I've always just kind of shied away from that. I've always just kind of stayed away from the boss's office. But now I'm kind of thinking that's not a good idea.
It's not a good thing. You want to keep the boss in the loop all the time. And if they offer, I have an open door policy, take them up on it. Absolutely.
Just go in there.
Go in there. Yeah, I mean, you may have to set up a meeting, but go in there. Let them know what you're up to.
Okay.
Yeah, they like to know.
They always like to know.
Yeah, they do.
Now, it sounds like a lot of the suggestions that you have won't just work for a boss, but even just colleagues and other managers that you might, because, we've all got that top boss, but there's a lot of bosses oftentimes underneath that top boss that you have to deal with.
Absolutely. Yeah, and actually anybody in your life who is this kind of person, a narcissist maybe, or a screamer, or anybody, So, it's good advice for all across the board.
Okay. And if you could say there was one mistake that so many of us make when it comes to dealing with our boss, what would you say that is?
I would say that they don't communicate enough.
Okay.
Because the bosses like to know what's going on. Even if they're a hands-off boss, they don't provide a lot of support for you. They need to know because they need to let their higher-ups know what's going on. So they need to know. They don't want to look like they, are out of the loop. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing. What happens when you have a bad boss is you sort of shy away and you say, I don't want to deal with the boss, but you really need to make sure you communicate.
And it doesn't matter if you're actually speaking voice to voice or if you send that boss an email.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Just keep them in the loop.
As long as they're in the loop.
As long as they're in the loop. They're the boss.
They are the boss.
Right?
Their name comes first on that
That's
group
right.
email.
Exactly.
Well, that is some great advice, Michele. Thank you so much for joining us. We certainly appreciate it. And should we be planning gifts too? Holidays are coming. Should we be shopping for gifts?
Oh, I got some ideas for that.
Okay. Okay. We might have to have you come back to talk about gifts for the boss.
Okay.
All right.
Love
Thank
it.
you so much. And for
Thank
more information from Michele, we do have a link to her website on kcal9.com. Just click Seed on TV.